This painting is unique in British art of the 18th century because it depicts a black woman and a white woman as near equals. In this video, I will recreate how Dido Elizabeth Belle might have looked in real life. She was unique because she was a mixed-race woman in 18th century England, brought up in the household of her father, an English aristocrat, while her mother was a former slave from the Caribbean. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Here on Mortal Faces, I take historic portraits and transform them to see how historic individuals might have looked in real life, as well as talk a little bit about them to see what their deal was. So let's get started. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more historical recreations, and let me know in the comments who you'd like to see in real life. Dido Elizabeth Belle was an illegitimate child of Sir John Lindsay, a naval officer from the aristocratic Lindsay family of England and Scotland. His father was a baronet and his mother was the daughter of a viscount. Belle was born because in the 1750s her father, Sir John Lindsay, was a captain of an English warship which was trying to capture Spanish ships in the Caribbean during the 7-Year War. While in the British West Indies, he met an enslaved African woman known as Maria Belle. One theory is thought that he found her as a slave on one of the Spanish ships he was trying to capture. He freed her and brought her to England. Confirmation of Dido's birth was provided by the American family friend Thomas Hutchinson, a historian and politician, and he said that she was born on the 29th of June, 1761, and in London. She was described by Thomas Hutchinson as neither handsome nor genteel, pert enough. After Belle's birth in London, not much is known about the mother, who lived there until Sir John gave her his parcel of land in the fashionable side of town in Pensacola, Florida, to build a house on. She was described in a survey of property owners as Mrs. Belle, widow. Until the age of 5, Belle and her mother could have lived in the household of relatives or close friends of Sir John in London. When she was about 5, she was handed over for a special upbringing with his uncle and aunt, the Lord and Lady Mansfield, who were childless. She lived on her uncle and aunt's estate, Kenwood House, just outside the city, and she was baptized and brought up as an English lady. You see, Sir John, her father, had a very true character. His sister was disowned by their parents because she eloped with an artist, and Sir John stayed loyal to her until her death. So with his daughter, though illegitimate and of a former slave, he was not going to let her have a disadvantaged life. So he brought her to live as the niece to his uncle, Lord Mansfield, who was the most powerful English jurist of the century. Lord Mansfield, whose name was William Murray, and his wife had no kids, so they took on Belle as well as her second cousin, Lady Elizabeth Murray. The couple saw Belle as a family member, and they treated her as such. Even though this was a time when slavery was not yet abolished in the British Empire, Lord Mansfield was one of the men who started the ball going for the abolishment of slavery in the upcoming decades. Belle lived at Kenwood House for 31 years. Lord and Lady Mansfield treated her and brought her up as a member of the Murray family. Thomas Hutchinson further wrote one evening, "A black came in after dinner and sat with the ladies, and after coffee walked with the company in the gardens, one of the young ladies having her arm within the other. She had a very high cap, and her wool was much frizzled in her neck, but not enough to answer the large curls now in fashion." Both girls were raised as educated women, but Belle, due to her background, was not as advantageous as her other half. While Lady Elizabeth was encouraged to go out and promote herself to find a husband, Belle was arranged to be more of a lady's companion, and eventually a mistress of her own house, maybe as an old maid. It's not that William and his wife didn't view Belle as family, rather she was a one-off, and not many people knew how to deal with a one-off in 18th century society. You could promote her like her cousin, but that's like feeding her to the lions. Another option would be to shelter her from the outside world, but that too would result in a lonely life. Best to deal with that later and instead see what she's capable of now. So right now, she was young and fully able to manage her uncle's correspondences, which was an unusual position usually given to males. The American friend Thomas Hutchinson recalled in his personal diary that Belle was called upon by my lord every minute for this thing and that, and showed the greatest attention to everything he said. As Belle grew older, she took on additional responsibilities in running the house and was given an annual allowance of £30 and 10 shillings. For comparison, the annual wage of a female domestic worker Holding the position of a housekeeper in a high-status household ranged from £20 to £70 at that time, while a Royal Navy lieutenant would draw about £100 a year, or a lawyer, maybe £140. About £200 purchased a 3-bedroom house with a garden outside the City of London. By contrast, her cousin Lady Elizabeth received around £100 annually, and when Lord Mansfield died, £10,000. However, she was a beneficiary in her own right because her father was Lord Mansfield's heir, so she had a different path than Belle despite the two cousins being brought up together. We have to remember, Belle wasn't just of mixed race, even if we ignore that she was still illegitimate. This was a world where great social stigma was accompanied by such a status, so for Belle to be accepted into the family, given equal education as any lady and a position within the household, given that she was illegitimate let alone mixed race, was more than she could have ever dreamed of had she been born into a less compassionate family. After Uncle William's death, to secure her future, he bequeathed to her £500 as an outright sum and a £100 annuity. In 1799, Belle also inherited £100 from one of two female relatives who had come to live with them to care for the Murrays in their later years. So Belle was already an independently wealthy woman. In fact, she had her own bank account with one of London's oldest and respected private banks. After William's death in 1793, aged 32, she married Jean-Louis Charles de Vignières, a Frenchman, 7 years younger than her, from Normandy. He worked as a gentleman's steward for a British politician. Belle went to live in Pimlico in a new-built Georgian house, which would have at least 3 bedrooms, a cook, and a housemaid. She lived there from 1794 until her death in 1804, aged 42 or 43, and had 3 sons. Her husband later remarried and had 2 more children with his second wife. And that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more historic recreations, please consider subscribing to my channel. Each of your subscriptions does help this channel grow, and it allows me to continue making more content for you. It's the best way to support me. Let me know in the comments who you'd like to see in real life. I do make a list of all your suggestions, and I will see you in the next one.